my sweet grandchildren. How are you today? I hope you're doing well. This is chapter 2. Today I want to talk to you about my near-death experiences. There are 3 for sure, and then a possible 4th, so let me dive right into them. The first near-death experience that I remember was when I was about 5 years old, and I'm living in Kansas City, Missouri with Mom and Dad and my sister Madeline. And we're living in an apartment, as I recall, on Van Brunt Boulevard, 4500 Van Brunt Boulevard, as I recall. I'm 5 years old. It's the winter time. We've had a huge snowstorm. Our apartment building was located at the top of a hill, and so the snow would pile up and gather around the sides of the building, and there would be tremendous embankments next to the building as the snow would pile up and pile up and pile up around the building. And if you went too far away from the apartment, the ground would start to slope downward, and the snow could easily be 6 or 7 feet deep when the slope and contour of the ground started to decline away from the building. Well, as a tyke of about 5 years old, I must have been, gosh, no more than 4 feet tall. But I wandered way too far from the edges of the apartment building, playing in the snow with Sister Madeline, and fell into this deep hole. And the snow had to have been, or certainly in my memory, it was perhaps 2 feet taller than I was, black, totally dark, couldn't see a thing. If Madeline had not been close by, no one would have heard me screaming and hollering for help. Madeline thankfully was close by, ran inside, got Mother and Meemaw saved the day, yanking me out of the embankment, yanking me out of the hole, and saving the day. The second near-death experience that I remember, I'm about 8 or 9 years old. I'm living in Kansas City again. At that time, we had moved to one of the suburbs, and as I remember, our address was 11308 East 47th Street. Now, while the house fronted on 47th Street, it was also adjacent to Highway 40. Highway 40 was a fairly common, and I'm going to say famous, highway, because to the east it went at least as far as Ohio, and to the west it went through Kansas and into Colorado. So I know it was a pretty well-used, well-worn, and the cars had to have been going 50, 60, maybe even 70 miles an hour on occasion. But at any rate, the neighborhood kids, Madeline and I, loved to play in our big front yard and side yard, and from time to time balls would roll across the highway. We were always admonished to look both ways, of course. We didn't always do that. So one day, of course, one of the balls rolled across the highway, and I retrieved it. I went across the highway, got the ball, and started back across, this time without looking. As a 8 or 9 year old, I'm thinking I'm bulletproof and I can survive anything and everything. So I remember being within a hair's breadth of being struck by a car moving perhaps 60 miles an hour. I can still feel the bumper or the fender of the car on my tennis shoe. I remember diving into the ditch to avoid being struck. And if I hadn't dove, I don't know that I'd be here today. So that was my second near-death experience. The third near-death experience took place in Canton, Mississippi. It was the summertime of about 1962. I'm 13 years old at the time. I think I had just turned 13, and my folks sent me to Canton for the summer to visit my very best friend, Billy White. Billy's mother and my mother were very best friends. They grew up together. In their adulthood, they still made contact with one another, kept in close contact, and we would spend summer times in Canton, Mississippi. That's where your great-grandmother and father on Meemaw's side of the family lived. And we had tons of relatives who live in Jackson, Mississippi, which is only 22 miles to the south of Canton. So we had all the reason in the world to visit in the summer Canton, Mississippi, and we did so. But this particular summer, they sent me all alone to enjoy a summer with my best friend, Billy. Billy and I went to the Canton Country Club. It's in Madison County, and it's the country club. As I recall, there were no lifeguards at the swimming pool, but we went anyway. And on that day, I remember I knew how to swim, except I wasn't as good as I would later become, but I knew how to tread water, or so I believed. On this occasion, Billy and his good friend Mike Lutz and I were playing some sort of game in the water. I remember being in the deep end. I remember being awfully tired. I remember being so tired that I started not having enough strength to tread water anymore, and I was going under, and I was fighting for my life. I remember Billy swimming up to me and trying to help me, but I was fighting for my life so badly that I remember even pulling him under the water. And he must have had tremendous water rescue abilities, because in spite of what I was doing to him, he was still able to yank me out of the water, get my head above water, and yank me out of the pool and give me mouth-to-mouth resuscitation. And I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for Billy White and his water rescue abilities. The fourth episode is not a near-death experience, but it's one I want to share with you because it was perhaps the most dangerous, the most ludicrous, and certainly a very stupid thing to do. I'm sharing it so that you will avoid it in your time, or at least hopefully you'll avoid it in your time. It's graduation night from high school. Now, around Raytown High School, you could go to almost any water tower, bridge, anything of anything, almost any building, and you would see RHS, Raytown High School, and a year associated with it, like class of '64 or class of